in school, you were always taught what you got wrong, and in order to get full marks, you had to improve on what you did wrong. Go back and revisit the topics that you did wrong. Now, that's all well and good, but when you focus on the negatives and what you can't do, later on in life, that has a natural tendency to focus on the negative, the inner dialogue. Whereas if you focused on your strengths and what you did really well, and you actually built on those strengths, you'd
excel,
you'd be a much more confident person.
Yeah.
And it links with what you were just saying, where you need to be accepting of your good parts, and you need to find through your own eyes what you really love about yourself, whether it's your personality, where you think, oh, I'm actually a really funny guy, or whether it's, oh, I'm actually a really caring person. Find what you love about yourself and use it. Use it a lot. Don't focus on what you can change and what you think is negative. Focus first on the positives and what you can really use and improve and nourish.
100%. There's an interesting story I read the other day about a kid that built this tree house, and it was like dead nice, and like he was in love with this tree house that he'd built. I think he'd spent like all weekend on it or whatever, and then he was examining it at the end, and there was like a little tiny bit of wood that was just out of place, and all of a sudden that's all he could focus on. He was thinking, oh, when my friends come around, they're gonna see this, and the reality of it is they came round and they didn't even see it. It was just he was so focused on the negative. But as soon as he started to listen to his friends and they were like, no, it's really nice, he started to like it again. So it just proves that, like, we focus on the negatives far too much. Too much.
Yeah.
Manifest your strengths. There's a brilliant quote as well from Bruce Lee. You know, I love Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Favorite martial artist. He said, I fear the man who has practiced the same kick 1,000 times, not the man that has practiced 1,000 different kicks once. And it's so true, because it just means when you're manifesting your strengths and not focusing on your weaknesses, you're going to thrive. If you're constantly putting yourself down and thinking, oh, well, even though I'm good in this area is going to negate that because I'm so bad at it and all that. Everyone's got different strengths. You can't... If that's the case, you're never going to be happy in life, because the perfect person doesn't exist. Does that make sense? The perfect person does not exist.
So true.
Yeah.
Everyone always looks for that perfect person. And the reason that people usually look for the perfect person is because you're so focused on the negatives that you're forgetting to see the positives. And you're forgetting to really... You're so focused on the negatives that you forget to enjoy and nourish them positives. Because if you nourish them positives, you could take that feeling to the next level. And you don't even know that yet.
Well, not only that, it's robbing you of joy, and it's robbing you of the present moment, because whenever you're in that present moment, like Jack said, he was speaking to people. He could have been having a meaningful conversation, but in his mind, he's thinking, oh, they're thinking negative about me, this, that, and the other, and you just would have been stuck in your mind. You wouldn't have been making meaningful connections with anyone, because you were so stuck in that negative core belief that you weren't good enough.
It's funny because when I first started dating, it's funny you mention that, because when I first started dating, I was looking at how other people dated and how you should speak to women. And I should have focused on what I'm good at. And what I'm good at is actually listening and having a proper conversation with people. So I always strike up meaningful conversations with people because I actually listen and I actually care about what you're saying. Yeah. So I should have been focusing on that, because I have a real strength with that. I have a real strength with empathy, with understanding. Where I was actually just doing, looking at how you should flirt with people, how you should, you know what I mean? I was saying things that I didn't even care about. I didn't even...
Well, if you overthink it like that as well, it just doesn't work, does it? You've got to let it
It's
flow.
not. Yeah, it's not. It's not a natural state to be in.
Yeah. You've just got to, like you say, when you just fully get out of your head and in the present moment, your personality is just going to take over anyway, and you're sort of just going to do what you're going to naturally do. It's like you're on autopilot almost,
Yeah.
which is good because you've got many strengths about you. So
I think the hardest part is to try and look at your own. It sounds so stupid, but the hardest part is to look at what you're good at, and to actually find what you're good at. And it's sad that I say that, because you should be taught that from such a young age. You should be taught from when you're a kid to look at what are your strengths, what are you really good at, what do you really like about yourself, not what can you improve. What do you really like about yourself right now, and how can we nurture that, and how can we really make that a core foundation?
Mate, I 100% agree. I feel like maybe not so much now in schools, but back when we were in school, primary school, high school, like you just said, you're always focusing on the negatives. It's not, oh, well, you're really good at this, so you should really, really focus on this. And I think when you're ingrained from that early of an age to sort of focus on the negatives, all of a sudden when you leave school, we're still doing that, because we're all kids at heart, aren't we? We've all got that inner child that is wounded, basically. And it sounds deep, but it's so true. Like if you've been taught that, then it's not your fault that you think that way. Like you're just part of the system. Like that's what you've been brought up to believe. But we can change those beliefs. So
I think especially because one thing that amplified that even more was when social media came around and you saw the perfect people on social media, or what were perceived to be the perfect people on social media. You've got this natural dialogue of, oh, let's improve my weaknesses. And then on top of that, you've got what's glorified to be the perfect person. So I remember in high school, the perfect person was either Zac Efron, Justin Bieber. It was kind of a clean cut, long hair, and could sing and could dance. And that was like the ideal person. And if you look back to how many people started to grow their hair out, and how many people started to try and sing and to dance and to imitate that.
Yeah.
And to try and change themselves. So instead of focusing on their own strengths, they try and focus on how can I improve myself to be more like them. And I think the more that social media grows, and the more that people's opinions on what's new and what's fashionable changes, the more people adapt to that and start to change themselves to be that, rather than to focus on what truly their strengths are.
100%.
For instance, everyone will do it. But you need to find something that's unique to you. What do you have that the Dwayne Johnsons of this world don't have? What do you have that the Zac Efrons don't have? Why is that special to you? And why should I care? Once you've found that, nourish it, and you will see a dramatic difference in the way that you build confidence.